to stick with it. But it never lasts, right? The truth is, most people don't have a discipline problem, they have a system problem. You don't need bigger goals. You need a daily setup that doesn't fall apart when your mood changes. In this video, you'll learn how to set systems instead of chasing goals. Systems that fit into your real life and keep going even when you're tired, distracted, or not in the mood. No hype, no pressure, just something that works. If you're tired of starting strong and fading out, this might be the shift you've been needing. Stay with this, it could change everything. Number one, lock in habits that work even on bad days. You know, anyone can show up when they feel good, when they're excited, when they're full of energy. But what about those days when you don't feel like doing anything? What about the mornings when your body's tired, your mind is scattered, and everything feels a little off? That's where most people stop. That's where dreams get delayed. That's where goals begin to fade, because they were only built for the good days. But if you really want to change your life, if you want something that lasts, you've got to build habits that don't care how you feel. Systems that don't depend on your mood. A way of living that functions even when your energy is low, when life isn't going your way, and when you're tempted to take the easy path. Most people set goals. Big goals. They write them down, they imagine what life will be like when they reach them. But then real life shows up. Stress hits, work piles up, motivation disappears, and the goal just sits there untouched. Because it was never about the goal, it was always about the system behind it. You don't need to feel strong every day. You need to build something that works even when you're weak. That's the difference between wishing for something and building a life that delivers results no matter what. See, you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your habits. So if your habits break every time you have a bad day, then you've got a life that's built on sand. But if your habits stay solid, even when your mind is tired, when your heart is heavy, when your patience is thin, then you've got something powerful, something that lasts. The first step is understanding that you won't always feel like it, and that's okay. You're human. Some days will feel heavy. Some mornings the alarm clock will ring and you won't want to move. Your body will beg for more sleep. Your brain will tell you to skip the hard stuff. That's normal. But that's also why you need a system. A system takes thinking out of it. It removes the debate. When you have a system, you don't ask yourself, do I feel like doing it today? You already know the answer doesn't matter. It's on the schedule. It's part of your day, like brushing your teeth. It's not up for negotiation. Now here's the real truth most people won't tell you. Your system doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real. It needs to be something you can actually follow, even on a rough day. That's why so many people fail. They try to create these big, perfect routines that only work when everything in life is calm. But life isn't always calm. So instead, build something that holds up even in the chaos. Start small, really small. If you want to read more, don't tell yourself you'll read 50 pages a day. Set up a system that says, every night before I sleep, I'll read 2 pages, no matter what. Why 2? Because 2 is possible even on the hard days. And here's the beauty. You'll often do more. But the system wasn't built for the best days. It was built for the worst ones. The same goes for working out. Don't say, I'll go to the gym for 2 hours every day. That's a goal, not a system. A system sounds like this. At 7 a.m. every weekday, I walk into the gym and move my body for 20 minutes. It's short, it's doable, and it's repeatable. You can scale it up when you're on fire, but on the hard days, it still happens. That's power. Systems win because they're built into your life. They don't wait for inspiration. They rely on rhythm, not hype. They use structure, not hype. If you're tired of starting over, you need a system. A way of living that's not based on how you feel, but on what you've decided. Decide once, execute daily. That's how strong people stay strong. You also need to know your weak points. Where do you break down? What triggers your laziness? When do you usually give up? Study those patterns. Don't ignore them. Don't hide from them. Look at them honestly, because your system must include protection from your worst habits. For example, if you always get distracted in the afternoon and start scrolling on your phone, your system has to include a block for that. Maybe at 2 p.m. every day, your phone goes in another room for 1 hour. That's a system. And on the days when your mind wants to wander, your system holds the line. And the biggest piece of this is understanding that emotions are not permanent. They come and go. Your job is not to feel perfect. Your job is to keep showing up, even when you don't. That's where growth lives. That's where strength is built. Not on the easy days, on the hard ones. You've got to train your mind to follow your system, not the other way around. Most people let their feelings run the show. I'm tired, I'll skip today. I'm not in the mood, I'll start tomorrow. And they repeat that pattern for years, until one day they realize nothing has changed. Time passed, life moved, but they stayed in the same place because they waited for feelings that never came consistently. Now let's talk about the deeper side of this. You see, when you follow a system, even on your worst days, you build something inside you. You build trust with yourself. That's not small. That changes everything. Because most people break promises to themselves over and over. They say they'll start and they don't. They say they'll stay committed and they quit. And each time they do, they lose a little more belief in themselves. But when you follow through, especially when you don't feel like it, you rebuild that trust. You start to believe again. You become the kind of person who does what they said they'd do. That's real confidence. That's self-respect. And no one can give that to you but you. So make your system simple. Make it solid. Make it so clear that even on a tired day, even on a rough morning, you can still do it. And understand this, discipline is not about being hard on yourself. It's about being kind to your future. A good system protects you from regret. It gives you direction when you're lost. It gives you motion when you're stuck. It gives you proof that you're not done yet, that you still have fight in you. Your habits must not depend on the weather, the news, your friends, your emotions, or your schedule. They must stand on their own. That's what separates people who grow from people who repeat. People often ask, how do I stay motivated? But that's the wrong question. You don't stay motivated, you stay consistent. Because consistency builds momentum. And momentum builds motivation. You don't need 1,000 new habits. You need a few strong ones that stick. You don't need to change everything overnight. You need to change one thing and not break it when life gets messy. Think about your own life right now. What do you do daily that moves you forward? And what do you keep skipping every time things get tough? Your answer is the start of your new system. Write it down. Keep it simple. Make it something you can do when you're tired, bored, frustrated, or stressed. Because that's the real test. Anyone can do it when it's easy. Few can do it when it's hard. But those few, they win. They grow. They change. They build lives that don't collapse under pressure. If you want lasting change, stop building around how you feel and start building around what you repeat. So stop chasing the perfect moment. Stop waiting to feel ready. Start building systems that carry you forward on the good days, the hard days, and every day in between. Your life will not change from what you plan to do. It will change from what you do, again and again and again. Even on the days when nothing in you feels ready. That's how you lock in habits that work, even on bad days. And once you've got that, you don't need motivation. You've got something stronger. You've got proof that you're serious. And that changes everything. Number two, make boring tasks part of your normal routine. Most people chase excitement. They want every task to feel fun, every routine to feel fresh, every moment to feel motivated. But life doesn't work that way, and success never has. The truth is, most of what makes life better is not exciting. It's not flashy, it's not fun, it's repetitive, it's consistent, it's boring. And that's exactly why so few people stick with it. The people who make real progress, the people who change, the people who grow, they don't rely on excitement. They learn to show up when it's boring. They learn to keep going when it's not fun. They don't wait for motivation. They build routines where even the most boring tasks become part of their day, like brushing their teeth or tying their shoes. They stop thinking of those tasks as optional. They make them automatic. If you only do the work when it's exciting, you'll never build anything that lasts, because the things that move your life forward, working out, eating right, saving money, reading, planning your day, reviewing your habits, these things aren't entertaining. They're necessary. And they're easy to skip if you treat them like extra credit. But when you make them a normal part of your day, they lose their resistance. You stop arguing with yourself about them. You stop trying to find the energy. You just do it because that's what you do. Think about the boring tasks in your life that you already do without thinking. Maybe it's making your bed. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. Maybe it's packing your bag for work. You don't get excited to do those things, but you do them because they're part of your rhythm. You've done them so many times that they no longer need a decision. They run on autopilot. That's how all powerful habits should feel. Boring, normal, part of your identity. When you make boring tasks part of your routine, you take back control. You stop reacting. You stop depending on external motivation. You take ownership of your day. You say, this matters to me, and it's going to get done no matter how I feel about it. That builds character. That builds results. That's how you grow. You see, we live in a world where everyone's chasing new hacks, new systems, new routines. But new doesn't build consistency. Familiar does. Repetition does. And the boring stuff, that's where repetition lives. That's where the real changes start. A lot of people say they want discipline, but they confuse discipline with intensity. Intensity is pushing hard for 1 or 2 days. Discipline is doing the same boring action for weeks, months, and years, even when nobody sees it, even when nobody praises it, even when there's no visible reward in the moment. That's what separates the person who talks from the person who transforms. If you want a better body, it won't come from one intense workout. It'll come from showing up to do the same movements again and again, even when your mind is bored and your body is tired. If you want financial freedom, it won't come from a single good month. It'll come from budgeting, tracking, saving, and saying no to impulse buys, day after day, month after month. These are not exciting tasks. They don't give instant pleasure, but they give long-term peace, and that peace is earned through repetition. The reason most people fail to create change is because they quit during the boring part. They start strong, they feel excited, they see a little progress, then things slow down. Results don't come as fast. The routine starts to feel heavy, and they begin to say things like, this isn't working, or I'll start something new. That's where most goals died, not in failure, but in boredom. But here's the truth. If you can learn to make boring tasks part of your routine, you eliminate the biggest threat to your progress. You stop quitting. You stop pausing. You stop restarting. You just keep going. And when you keep going, progress stacks up quietly, slowly, but surely. It's not about forcing yourself to love the boring parts. It's about learning to respect them, to understand their purpose, to value their role. When you see how much these simple, repetitive actions matter, you stop seeing them as a waste of time. You start to see them as the foundation of everything you want. There's also something powerful about doing what others won't. Most people can't handle boredom. They chase pleasure. They want change without repetition. They want growth without routine. But when you're the one who shows up every day, doing the boring task over and over without applause, you separate yourself. Quietly, strongly, permanently. You don't need to enjoy the boring tasks. You need to keep doing them. And the more you repeat them, the more they become part of you. They stop feeling like a chore. They become normal. They become easy. And that's the goal. Not to love every task, but to make the hard ones feel automatic. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. The boring tasks you avoid are often the exact things that would change your life if you just stuck with them. Writing that journal, logging that workout, drinking that water, practicing that skill, planning your next day, these are the quiet moves that build real results. People talk about systems, but systems don't work without boring tasks. A system is only as strong as its consistency, and consistency is built in the repetition of small actions, day after day. That's how a system changes your life. Not through one big moment, but through hundreds of quiet ones. You've got to retrain your mind. You've got to stop expecting everything to feel good. Growth doesn't feel good most of the time, but it feels worth it later. The boring task you avoid today is the thing your future self will thank you for tomorrow. When you learn to show up for the boring tasks, you become dependable. And when you're dependable to yourself, you start to build belief. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop needing to prove anything to anyone. You start knowing who you are. This isn't about grinding yourself into exhaustion. It's about building a rhythm that removes resistance. It's about creating patterns that don't break under stress. You can't afford to rely on excitement. Excitement fades, but habits stay. Routines hold. That's how you move forward. Steadily, patiently, powerfully. So ask yourself, what boring task are you avoiding? What part of your day always feels hard, annoying, or pointless? That task is your starting point. Not the big flashy idea, not the new strategy, the boring thing, the one that feels like it doesn't matter. Because once that becomes part of your routine, the rest becomes easier. There's no secret to success, no shortcut, no magical feeling. It's about making a few important actions so normal that they stop being a decision. They just become what you do. That's freedom. That's how you take your life from chaos to control. You don't need more motivation, you need more structure. You don't need to feel inspired, you need to follow through on what matters. And the way to do that is by turning the boring tasks into your foundation. It will feel slow at first. It might feel pointless some days. But you'll start to notice something. You're becoming stronger, more stable, more focused. And while others are stopping, starting, and drifting, you'll be moving forward quietly, steadily. And before you know it, those boring tasks will be the reason everything in your life feels more in control. Make them part of your normal day. Treat them like brushing your teeth, like locking your front door. No thinking, no doubting, no waiting, just doing. Because when the boring things stop being optional, your life stops being unpredictable. You build stability, you build discipline, you build momentum, and most importantly, you build yourself. The real you, the consistent you, the grounded you, the version of you who doesn't need a perfect day to make progress. That's the person who wins. That's the person who changes. That's the person who lives life on purpose, one boring task at a time. Every single day, number 3, train your brain to follow patterns, not pressure. Pressure breaks most people. It builds up in their minds, makes simple things feel heavy, and turns daily tasks into something overwhelming. But pressure isn't always real. Sometimes it's just your thoughts, getting louder than your discipline. It's the voice in your head saying you have to do this now or you're behind. Or, if you don't get this done perfectly, you're failing. That voice grows when there's no pattern, when everything you do is reactive, scattered, and inconsistent. If you want peace, if you want focus, if you want to get things done without draining yourself, you have to train your brain to follow patterns, not pressure. Patterns give you direction, pressure gives you panic. When you wake up in the morning without a pattern, your brain scrambles to find something to hold on to. It gets flooded with decisions, questions, and stress. But when your day follows a simple, clear structure, your mind relaxes. You're no longer chasing clarity, you're following it. Most people operate on pressure. They wait until the deadline. They delay action until anxiety hits. Then they sprint, stress, and collapse. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. And it doesn't build long-term results. You don't need pressure to succeed. You need rhythm. You need to make certain behaviors automatic, repeated, consistent. That's how you create momentum that doesn't wear you out. Patterns are reliable. You don't need to think about brushing your teeth. You just do it. It's part of the pattern. That's how the rest of your day should feel. Not full of mental noise and urgent thoughts, but calm, controlled, and intentional. When your brain knows what to expect, it stops overthinking. It stops hesitating. It starts focusing on the doing, not the doubt. Training your brain to follow patterns starts with removing the constant negotiation. Every time you ask yourself, should I do this now? You give pressure a place to grow. But when the task is already built into your day, when it has a time and space, that question disappears. You're not waiting on emotion. You're just acting. The goal is not to become robotic. It's to become stable, to remove the chaos from your thinking, to make your actions stronger than your moods. When your day has structure, your mind becomes clearer. It knows what's coming. It prepares. It doesn't waste energy guessing. Pressure makes you feel like you're always behind. Patterns keep you ahead. When you follow pressure, you rely on adrenaline. When you follow patterns, you rely on discipline. And discipline doesn't burn out. It builds up. This is how you stop being overwhelmed. You give every important task a home. You decide when and how it happens. You don't leave it floating around, waiting to turn into pressure. That's what most people do. They let tasks pile up mentally. They carry unfinished thoughts. They try to remember everything. That creates a storm in the mind. But a strong pattern clears the storm. It takes scattered thoughts and turns them into simple steps. When your brain has too many choices, it freezes. It becomes restless. You start jumping between tasks, getting nothing done. But when your day is mapped with patterns, your choices shrink and your results grow. You don't have to decide everything on the spot. You've already decided it once, and now you're just following through. Some people think patterns make life boring. They think it's too rigid, but what's truly exhausting is pressure. Waking up every day not knowing what to do, feeling like there's never enough time, spinning in circles because everything feels urgent. That's what steals your energy, not the pattern, but the lack of one. A good pattern brings freedom. It gives your brain space. It creates clarity. It helps you spend your energy on what matters, instead of wasting it on indecision. And you start to trust yourself more, because you see yourself following through. You feel progress happening. You feel the noise getting quieter. To train your brain, start small. Don't try to plan everything. Start with just one pattern, one time block, one habit. Choose a time, choose the task, and commit to it. Same time, same action, every day. Your brain will resist at first. It'll try to make excuses, but with enough repetition, that resistance fades, and it becomes part of who you are. It's not about being perfect. It's about being predictable to yourself. If your days look different every time you wake up, your mind will always feel unsettled. But when you create patterns, when your brain knows what's coming, it adapts. It becomes sharper, more focused, less reactive. You need to see pressure for what it really is, a reaction to chaos. It's your mind's way of screaming for order. So give it order, give it rhythm. Replace the pressure with a pattern that works, one that keeps your mind steady, even when life gets tough. You'll notice your stress start to drop. Your confidence will grow. Not because everything's perfect, but because you finally have control. You're not chasing tasks anymore. You're leading them. You're creating a day that works for you, not against you. And this doesn't mean you can't be flexible. It means you start with structure. You begin from a place of clarity. Then you adapt if needed. But you never operate from chaos. You never live in pressure. The people who create big changes aren't always the most talented. They're often just the most consistent. They've learned to build lives around strong patterns. They've stopped giving in to pressure. And because of that, they're always moving forward. Calmly, steadily, effectively. When your brain follows a pattern, your mind gets stronger. Your focus improves. Your stress drops. Your results increase. That's the power of structure. It protects you from burnout. It protects you from the emotional roller coaster. It keeps you grounded. And over time, that pattern becomes your edge. It becomes the reason you show up when others quit. The reason you stay focused when others panic. The reason you build real progress without forcing it. So stop waiting for pressure to push you into action. Create patterns that pull you into focus. Make your day so steady that your brain doesn't have to guess. Give your mind peace. Give your goals structure. Give your habits a home. That's how you move through life with power. Not rushed, not reactive, not overwhelmed, but clear, composed, and always in motion. When you train your brain to follow patterns, you stop being a slave to pressure. You start living by design, not reaction. And that's how everything starts to change. Quietly, deeply, permanently. Number 4. Break big ideas into things you can repeat. Most people get excited by big ideas. They imagine their dream life, their ideal body, their future success, and they feel inspired for a moment. They see the end result in their head, but they never break it down into something they can actually do. So the idea stays a fantasy. It never becomes real, because it never becomes small enough to start. That's the problem. Not the lack of vision, but the lack of breakdown. When something feels too big, it paralyzes the mind. You start thinking about all the steps at once. You imagine the 100 things that have to happen before you get there. And suddenly your brain says, it's too much. So you stop before you even start. Not because you're lazy, not because you don't want it, but because you never turned that big idea into small actions you could repeat. The most powerful change doesn't come from one big move. It comes from something you do over and over. If you look at anyone who's mastered anything, fitness, business, communication, leadership, they didn't wake up one day with it all figured out. They found a small piece of the puzzle and repeated it until it became part of who they were. If you want to write a book, the idea of writing 50,000 words might feel overwhelming, but writing 500 words a day is simple. If you want to lose 30 pounds, focusing on the whole number makes it feel distant. But walking 30 minutes a day and choosing one clean meal is something you can do today. Repeating small moves is how big ideas become reality. Your brain works better when it knows where to begin. It doesn't need a full plan for the next year. It needs a starting point you can return to every day. That's what repetition gives you. Stability, direction, a path that doesn't disappear just because life gets messy. You have to stop making your goals about size and start making them about consistency. A big goal sounds good when you talk about it, but a repeated action is what brings it to life. It's easy to say, I want to start a business, but that doesn't mean anything until you break it down into what you'll do today, tomorrow, and next week. A website doesn't build itself. A product doesn't create itself. You have to carve out steps that fit into your daily structure. When you repeat something small, you're teaching your brain that this is what matters now. You stop fantasizing about the future and start acting in the present. You don't need to get everything done at once. You just need to keep doing the next piece, again and again. Most people are stuck not because they lack ideas, but because their ideas are too big to act on. And they're afraid to shrink them down because they think small steps aren't impressive enough. But here's the truth. Small steps are what make everything possible. The people who succeed don't do everything. They do the right things over and over. And that's what moves them forward. You can't build something great from random, scattered effort. You need rhythm, you need simplicity, and you need actions you can repeat without talking yourself out of it. That's how real progress feels. It's not loud, it's steady. Don't aim to finish everything in a week. Aim to do something every day that moves you forward. No matter how small it looks, those small pieces start to add up. One brick a day builds the wall. One rep a day strengthens the muscle. One conversation a day builds the network. One skill a day sharpens your value. That's how it works. That's what creates results that last. A big idea should never stay big in your head. It should be broken down until it fits inside your day. Because if it doesn't fit into your day, it will never fit into your life. That's the standard. If the action isn't repeatable, it won't survive long term. And if it's not simple, your brain will find a way to skip it. Break your goals into actions that don't rely on emotion. Don't build your plan around energy or inspiration. Build it around behavior you can do even on tired days. That's what makes it sustainable. That's how you make sure you don't stop halfway. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. Again and again. The power is in the rhythm. It's in showing up every day and hitting the mark, even when the results haven't shown up yet. Because you trust the system, you trust the process, and more importantly, you trust yourself to keep showing up. If something feels too hard to repeat, simplify. Don't try to do the hardest version of a task every time. Do the version you can stick with. Start with 5 minutes if you need to, then grow it slowly. Make it strong before you make it big. That's the difference between people who burn out and people who break through. Break everything down. The habit, the schedule, the process. Make it so simple you can't miss it. Make it so clear that your brain doesn't need to think twice. That's how you remove the gap between knowing what you want and doing what it takes. Stop waiting to feel ready. Break it down and because once you do, you'll feel momentum. And momentum is worth more than motivation. It builds belief. It builds identity. It proves to you that you can do it again tomorrow. And if tomorrow gets hard, you won't have to figure out what to do. You'll already know, because the path is there. Number 5. Build structure that holds you up when you crash. There will be days when you don't feel like doing anything. Days when your mind is heavy. Your body is drained and everything feels harder than it should. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe something went wrong. Maybe you're just tired of trying. It happens to all of us. And if you don't have something solid to lean on, you fall. You lose your rhythm. You lose your momentum. And before you know it, a bad day turns into a bad week. A bad week becomes a bad month. And suddenly you're back where you started. That's why you need structure. Not for the days when everything is going well, but for the days when you crash. Structure is what keeps you standing when your emotions try to knock you down. It gives you something to return to when your motivation is gone. It's the safety net that keeps your progress from breaking apart. Without structure, you have to rely on how you feel. And feelings are unpredictable. One small setback can throw everything off. But structure doesn't bend when your mood does. It holds its place. It stays strong so you don't have to figure things out from scratch every time you fall. When you build a structure around your life, you're not controlling everything. You're protecting your future. You're saying, even if today goes wrong, I still have a base. I still have actions I can take that don't require me to feel amazing. And that's powerful, because most people quit not because they can't do it, but because they didn't plan for the hard moments. They only built routines for the good time. So when pressure hits, when emotions shift, they collapse. The structure you build should be simple. It should be something you understand, something you can return to without overthinking. That might look like waking up at the same time every day, no matter how you feel, or having a short checklist that you follow regardless of how motivated you are. It could mean planning your meals ahead of time so you don't make bad choices when you're exhausted, or keeping your workspace cleaned and organized so you don't start your day surrounded by stress. These small things, when repeated, give your mind less to fight through. Think about how much energy is wasted trying to make decisions in the middle of chaos. You wake up late, you don't know what to do first. You start rushing, skipping steps, reacting to everything. That's what happens when there's no structure. But if you already know your first 3 actions of the day, you don't waste time thinking. You just move. You just begin. And sometimes that's all it takes to turn the day around. This isn't about being strict or robotics. It's about building support systems for your weaker moments, because we all have them. Nobody's consistent every single day. But when you have structure, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to stick to the basics. The structure keeps your habits in place. It reminds you who you are when you forget. And it keeps you from slipping too far off track when life gets hard. Structure creates freedom. Not the kind of freedom where you do whatever you want. The kind where your time is used with intention, where you're not pulled in 100 directions, where you're not wasting your days trying to get back on track, because you never let yourself drift that far in the first place. That kind of freedom is built on daily structure, and it's one of the most valuable things you can give yourself. You don't have to structure every second of your day. That's not realistic. But you do need to lock in a few key routines that stay the same no matter what. A morning routine that anchors you, a work structure that keeps you productive, an evening routine that shuts down the day with peace. These aren't complicated. They're repeatable, they're dependable, and that's what makes them work. People often say, I'll get back to my routine when things calm down, but that's backward. You keep your routine so things don't fall apart when life gets loud. It's not about waiting for perfect conditions. It's about preparing for the messy ones, the tired ones, the days when your thoughts are all over the place. That's when your structure saves you. It might sound simple, but it's not easy, because structure requires discipline. It asks you to do things even when you're not in the mood. It asks you to respect your plan even when nobody's watching. But that's what makes it work. That's what makes it strong. And once you've lived with real structure, you don't want to go back to chaos. You don't want to keep rebuilding your mindset every time life throws a punt. You want something you can lean on, something that won't break when you do. That's the beauty of it. Structure doesn't need to feel exciting. It just needs to hold. You don't need to be at your best for structure to help you. You just need to you just need to let it carry you until you feel strong again. Because you will feel strong again. You will bounce back. But until then, let the structure keep you moving. The more you follow your structure, the more natural it becomes. It starts to feel like part of who you are. You don't have to remind yourself anymore. It's just how you operate. And that's when your life starts to change. Not because everything's perfect, but because you finally have something that keeps you steady through the imperfect. Don't wait for rock bottom to build a foundation. Build it now, while you have the energy, while you can think clearly. Create something solid that future you can lean on. Not every day will be smooth. Not every plan will go right. But if you've built the structure, you won't fall far. You'll know how to reset. You'll know how to come back. That's what real strength looks like. Not never crashing, but never staying down. And what helps you stand back up isn't willpower. It's structure. It's what you designed for moments exactly like this. You need something stronger than your excuse. You need something that doesn't change when your motivation disappears. That's what a strong structure gives you. It becomes your fallback, your baseline, your reminder that even on your worst days, you still have something to hold on to. So take the time, build it now. Build it around the things that matter most to you. Make it simple, make it solid, make it so real that when things fall apart, you don't. Because you won't always be at your best, but you can always come back to your structure. And that's what keeps you moving. That's what keeps you from breaking. That's what builds the kind of life that doesn't depend on luck, or timing, or emotions. Just quiet discipline, just clear design, just strong structure, holding you up when nothing else does. Number 6, replace wishful thinking with daily solid actions. Most people spend more time imagining a better life than building one. They talk about their dreams. They think about what they want. They hope things will change. But hope doesn't make things happen. Action does. And until you replace wishful thinking with solid daily actions, nothing around you will change. It doesn't matter how big your goals are or how badly you want something. If your days don't reflect your desires, your life won't either. Wishing feels good. It gives you a quick hit of excitement. You picture the end result. You imagine the success. You see yourself in a new position, in better shape, living with more freedom. But then the feeling fades, and you're left with the same routines, the same habits, the same distractions. And that's the trap. The more you fantasize, the more satisfied you feel temporarily, without doing anything real to move closer. That's why people can go years wishing for change, but never experiencing it. The people who make real progress don't spend their days dreaming. They spend their days doing. They don't wait for the right time. They don't wait for everything to feel perfect. They just start. They focus on the small actions they can control. They look at each day and ask, what can I do today that brings me one step closer? Then they do that, whether they feel like it or not. Wishful thinking is easy. It doesn't cost anything. It doesn't challenge you. It doesn't demand consistency. But action does. Action asks you to show up, to follow through, to make decisions, to sacrifice comfort. And that's why so many people avoid it. Because it's not always pleasant. But the discomfort of action is what creates results. It's what builds skill, character, and progress. You have to stop hoping for change and start creating it. That means setting up daily actions that are real, trackable, and consistent. You don't need a massive plan. You don't need to know every detail. You just need to move. Action is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Without it, you're just standing still, staring at the other side. The truth is, nothing about your situation will shift if your behavior stays the same. You can't keep living the same day and expect a different result. The change starts when your habits change. Not once, but every day. Not when you feel inspired, but when you decide it mattered enough to be done regularly. Think about the things you've been wishing for. Maybe it's a healthier body. Maybe it's more money. Maybe it's stronger relationships, a better mindset, or a life with more direction. Ask yourself this: what actions am I taking every single day to support this? And be honest. Not what you plan to do. Not what you did last month. What are you doing now, today, this week? When there's a gap between your wishes and your actions, you'll feel stuck. And that stuck feeling doesn't come from failure. It comes from inaction. Your mind knows what you want, but your behavior doesn't back it up. That creates frustration. It creates self-doubt. It creates anxiety. But the moment you align your actions with your goals, things shift. You start building confidence, not because you've arrived, but because you're moving. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need everything figured out. You just need to act. Start with something simple, something small, something that can be repeated. The goal isn't to do everything in one day. The goal is to do something meaningful every day. This is not about being busy. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. It's easy to fill your time with distractions and call it effort. But solid daily action means you're doing what matters, what pushes the needle, what brings real change. That kind of action is intentional. It's chosen. It's prioritized. A person who builds their day around action is building their future.